Andrea Bocelli once said that if God does not give you light, you must become the light yourself. He did not say this from a podium draped in comfort. He said it as a man who had known darkness in the most absolute, irreversible sense of the word. A man for whom the sun was not a sight but a warmth, for whom a face was not an image but a presence felt through breathing, through the shift of air, through the particular silence a person leaves behind when they walk away. And yet, this same man has stood before 100,000 strangers, walked unaided to the center of stages so vast that even sighted performers need guides, opened his mouth, and made the entire world go still, not quiet, still. The kind of stillness that only happens when something true enters a room. Andrea Bocelli was born on September 22, 1958 in Lahadico, a small village tucked into the rolling hills of Tuscany near Pisa. His father sold agricultural machinery and tended vineyards. His mother kept the home and the children close. Life was not wealthy, but it was warm, built on the textures of soil, on the hum of machinery at dusk, on folk songs drifting through open windows. He was born with congenital glaucoma that left him nearly sightless from his very first breath. What he could perceive were blurred contrasts, light like gauze, silhouettes in place of faces, shadow where there should have been color. So he listened. From the very beginning, his world was assembled entirely from sound. Before Andrea was born, his mother received a devastating diagnosis. A severe case of appendicitis threatened her life, and doctors advised her to terminate the pregnancy. Eddie Bocelli refused. She carried her son to term at great personal risk, a decision Andrea would later describe not merely as an act of love, but as the act that saved his soul. His belief in the sanctity of life, his unyielding faith, his conviction that suffering must never be the final argument against existence, all of it traces back to that single, silent choice his mother made before he ever drew breath. His parents refused to raise him inside the soft prison of pity, so Andrea was given instruments. Piano at age 6, then guitar, flute, trumpet, drums. He learned every one of them entirely by ear, hearing a piece once and reproducing it with a precision that stunned his teachers. He never saw a note. He felt his way through music the way a sculptor feels clay. When he lost the last remnants of his sight completely at age 12, after a football struck his head and caused a brain hemorrhage that no doctor could reverse, he did not stop. He learned Braille notation, reading notes with his right hand and memorizing them before playing with both. He once said, "I hear and I see through sound." For him, that was not poetry. It was literal, precise, true. That same year, lying in a cold hospital room after the accident, someone played him a recording of Franco Corelli, the legendary Italian tenor. The voice filled the room, and Andrea, 12 years old, newly and permanently blind, began to cry. Not from grief, from recognition, from the sudden clarity of knowing exactly what he was meant to do. Darkness had just become his destination, but music had just become his direction. His years at a boarding school for the blind were long and lonesome. 64 students shared a single large dormitory. Andrea would lie awake listening to the wind press against the windows, thinking of home, of his mother's voice, of the vineyards. He later said that music was the lamp that kept the darkness from winning. Every melody he memorized was another reason to remain. Wishing to give his parents a practical future to believe in, Andrea enrolled at the University of Pisa to study law. He recorded lectures on tape, memorized textbooks through listening alone, and briefly practiced law after qualifying. But even in courtrooms, melodies played in the back of his mind like something refusing to be ignored. At 18, he had already begun playing piano in local bars to fund his education, earning small amounts in smoky rooms where no one came to listen. Yet the moment he began to sing, those same rooms would fall silent. He learned something irreplaceable in those bars, how to reach a person who is not trying to be reached. That, he later said, was his real education. In 1992, destiny arrived through a single phone call. Italian rock legend Zucchero Fornaciari was searching for a tenor to record a demo of Miserere to be sent to Luciano Pavarotti. Bocelli was invited to sing it. When the demo reached Pavarotti, the maestro listened for only a few seconds and said, "Why do you need me when you already have this man?" That sentence changed the entire trajectory of Andrea Bocelli's life. By 1994, he appeared at the Sanremo Music Festival and captivated all of Italy. 2 years later, he recorded Time to Say Goodbye alongside Sarah Brightman, a song that sold over 12 million copies and reached #1 in more than 20 countries. a shared emotional experience that appeared at funerals, at weddings, at the ends of things and the beginnings of others, until it felt less like a recording and more like a piece of collective memory. His 1997 album, Romanza, sold over 25 million copies, becoming the best-selling classical crossover album in recorded history. Sacred Areas in 1999 was recognized by Guinness World Records as the best-selling classical album ever. He performed at the White House, received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and was named Classical Artist of the Century at the World Music Awards. Through all of this, critics accused him of commercializing opera, of being too accessible. Bocelli never argued back. He simply said, "Art is not about rules, it is about emotion." What he created did not dilute opera. It opened it, brought it into the living rooms of people who had never set foot in a concert hall, into the hearts of people who did not know a tenor from a baritone but knew, undeniably, that whatever this man was doing to them when he sang, it mattered. Backstage, colleagues marveled at how he moved, completely blind, memorizing stages through echoes and wind patterns. He would walk into a vast performance space without hesitation, without a guide, as if he were walking home. During one outdoor concert in Florence, a violent rainstorm struck mid-performance. Bocelli sang through the entire storm without stopping. He had not seen the storm. He had simply felt it and sung through it anyway. As a young man still playing in bars, he met Enrica Cenzatti, then just 17, who stopped to listen one evening and never quite left. They married in 1992 and had 2 sons, Amos, born in 1995, and Matteo, born in 1997. Enrica believed in him when he had nothing to prove it with except his voice, encouraged him to leave law, and helped support his early music studies. She was the architecture beneath the man the world would eventually see. But fame came between them gradually, silently, like a slow tide you do not notice until you are already standing far from shore. They divorced in 2002 without scandal or bitterness. Bocelli said simply, "She gave me 10 years of her life and 2 sons. I will never speak ill of her." That same year, he met Veronica Berti. She was 18. He was 44. He later said he was struck first by her voice, then by the quality of her presence, something he could feel without seeing. What followed became, over years, a partnership of rare depth. Veronica became not only his wife, but the organizer of his professional life, the vice president of his humanitarian foundation, and the person he credits with keeping him grounded. Their daughter, Virginia, was born in 2012. On March 21, 2014, Virginia's second birthday, they married in a small seaside church in Tuscany. Veronica has spoken publicly about never feeling jealous despite the nature of his work. "That would be foolish," she said. "If she is a kind person, someone you can sing about love with, all the better." That is not dismissiveness. That is the confidence of a woman who knows exactly who she is and exactly who he is. In April 2020, during a global pandemic that had locked every human being inside their own fear, Bocelli stood alone in the Milan Cathedral on Easter Sunday. No audience, no orchestra, only light through ancient stained glass and his voice moving through centuries of stone. He sang Amazing Grace to an empty church watched simultaneously by over 180 million people. He asked nothing of them, made no speech. He simply sang and let the sound do what sound has always done when it is true. Cross every border, bypass every argument, arrive directly inside the chest, and stay there. That same year, he faced media controversy over remarks about pandemic lockdowns taken out of context. He apologized simply and without defensiveness. Others accused him of using his blindness as a marketing strategy. He answered quietly, "I don't want to be seen as a miracle. I am just a musician. I see in another way." In winter 2023, doctors halted several American tour dates when his health deteriorated dangerously. A Boston concert was canceled minutes before curtain. In Philadelphia, he sat by the piano while his daughter and musicians performed in his place. He later wrote that his voice was the gift he had been given and that he owed it the same discipline an athlete gives to legs. He lives now in a 3-story home beside the Tuscan Sea, where mornings begin with piano and breakfast on the terrace. He rides horses through his vineyards, runs the Bocelli 1831 winery, and continues to lead the Andrea Bocelli Foundation, established in 2011 to fund schools, medical care, and scholarships for children with disabilities across Italy, Haiti, and beyond. He tours with his sons, making each concert a conversation between generations. He founded the Teatro del Silencio in his home valley of Lajatico, an open-air stage that hosts one performance each year and then remains silent for the other 364 days. A theater built from quiet, from the understanding that music means more when it is surrounded by its opposite. Over 30 years, Bocelli has sold more than 90 million records. But none of those numbers are the point. The point is what happens in a person's chest when his voice begins, the way the body suddenly remembers something it had forgotten, the way grief becomes bearable, or joy becomes speakable, or loneliness becomes, for a few minutes, something you are sharing with everyone else who has ever felt it. That cannot be taught or marketed or manufactured. That is what happens when a person has lived their truth so completely that the truth begins to speak through them without effort. Andrea Bocelli lost his sight. He did not lose his vision. He lost the ability to see the world as it appears. He gained the ability to feel it as it is. And every night he walks to the center of a stage in absolute darkness and opens his mouth. He proves that the two are not the same thing, and that what cannot be seen is sometimes the only thing worth singing about.